It's story time with K-Whisper. Grab your popcorn, settle in, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss a tale that touches your heart. Let's dive into today's bittersweet love story. The cold stung harder than usual that morning. Chisum Okafor clutched the sleeves of her thin coat tighter as she stepped off the bus in Seoul's Jongno district, weaving her way past early commuters and blinking lead signs. Her fingers, stiff with chill, adjusted the straps of her oversized backpack, which held her life's work: books, papers, transcripts, and the last envelope of unpaid tuition bills tucked beneath it all. She was exhausted. Beyond the kind of tired that could be cured by sleep. Beyond the strength her family thought she still had. 4 years in South Korea had aged her in ways she couldn't measure. The struggle for survival as an international medical student, black, foreign, alone, had taught her a quiet resilience. But now, with her student visa hanging by a thread and final semester fees unpaid, her options were rapidly vanishing. Chisum, a soft voice called behind her. She turned and spotted Bada, a Korean woman in her early 30s, bundled in a beige trench coat. Bada had once worked the night shift with her at a pharmacy in Daehyun. They hadn't spoken in months. "Thanks for meeting me," Bada said quickly. "You look tired." "I am," Chisum replied honestly. Bada hesitated. "I know this isn't the path you imagined for yourself, but I swear, if I had another way out when I did it, I wouldn't have done it either. Still, I don't regret it." "What's the catch?" Chisum asked flatly. "No catch," Bada said. "They want privacy. Total silence. But you'll be taken care of. The money is real. And after it's done, you walk away." Chisum looked down at the white card Bada handed her. "No agency name, just a phone number and a time, 10 a.m. tomorrow. Come alone." She stared at the card, her pulse quickening. "I don't even know who they are," Chisum murmured. "You don't need to," Bada said. "But they are rich, powerful, cold as hell, and desperate." The next morning, she followed the GPS to an office tucked behind a private medical clinic in Gangnam. The waiting rooms smelled sterile. A middle-aged Korean woman in a gray suit, neat and impassive, introduced herself as Ms. Hwang. "We are representing a high-profile client who is seeking a gestational surrogate. No genetic connection will exist between you and the child. You will carry the embryo to full term, after which all parental rights are waived. Your compensation is 100 million won. A contract will be signed after health screening, background checks, and confidentiality clearance." Chisum's mouth was dry. She had no family in Korea. No legal cushion. And after next month, she'd have no visa. What choice did she really have? She passed every test they threw at her. Blood, psych evaluations, even genetic screenings. 3 weeks later, she was given a new phone, handed a keycard, and instructed to report to a private clinic for the embryo transfer. She didn't meet the parents until after it was done. The car stopped at a massive iron gate on the edge of Seongbuk-dong, one of Seoul's oldest and most exclusive districts. The mansion beyond it was minimalist, glass and gray stone, guarded by security cameras and silence. She was led through a side entrance, not the grand front door. Inside, every surface gleamed. The scent of polished wood hung in the air. Soft jazz played from invisible speakers. 2 people were already seated in the vast living room. The man stood as she entered. Tall, dressed in a navy suit that probably cost more than a year of her rent. His face was calm, cold, deliberate. He extended a hand. "Daehyun Kang," he said simply. The name struck her immediately. Of course she knew him. Billionaire CEO of Mirai Digital, the face of innovation in Korea's tech empire. Rumored to be worth over $200 million. He sat back down, folding his hands neatly in his lap. The woman beside him offered a tight smile. Slender, poised, a beauty too pristine to be real. Her voice was as cool as her perfectly lined eyes. "I'm Eun-hye." Chisum remained standing. "You've passed all our requirements," Daehyun said without inflection. "We're grateful." "We understand this is a business transaction," Eun-hye continued. "No contact after birth. You will carry the child, deliver her safely, and then leave." "Ha. A girl. You'll live on the property," Daehyun added. "A separate residence has been prepared. Your health and safety will be monitored daily. In exchange, you'll receive monthly support plus the final compensation." Chisum nodded slowly. "If you have any concerns, this is the time to voice them," Eun-hye said. Chisum looked from her to Daehyun. There was no warmth between them. No shared glance.
No excitement about bringing life into the world.
Just cold precision. I have no concerns, she said quietly. Her new apartment was tucked behind the main house, a sleek, detached suite overlooking a manicured courtyard. Inside, it had everything: smart appliances, a plush bed, bookshelves already filled, a stocked kitchen.
It looked like it belonged to someone else. Someone wealthy. Someone wanted. But no one visited.
Doctors came weekly. Nutritionists dropped off meal plans. Nurses checked her blood pressure and fetal development.
And still, Chisholm ate alone. Walked alone.
Slept alone.
4 days, she didn't see Daehyun or Eun-hye.
Then one afternoon, she stepped out to the courtyard for fresh air. The winter sun was melting snow in soft patches across the pavement. Daehyun was sitting on a bench beneath the trees, his long coat buttoned to the neck, eyes on a tablet in his lap.
She hesitated. He looked up.
You can sit.
She moved cautiously to the opposite end of the bench.
You're in your first trimester, he said, not as a question. Everything is progressing. Yes. He nodded once. I appreciate you taking this seriously.
She glanced at him.
Most people don't think of pregnancy as a job. His mouth curved, almost a smile, but not quite. I wasn't raised to see it as anything else, he murmured. In our world, children are expectations, not blessings.
Chisholm didn't know how to respond.
She watched his eyes, dark and unreadable, then finally asked, Why now? Why not adoption?
He didn't flinch. Eun-hye wanted a child with our name.
But she has complications.
We've tried everything else.
This is the last attempt.
He stood suddenly. You'll be monitored more closely starting next week.
Let me know if anything changes.
Before she could reply, he was gone.
At night, the house whispered secrets. Sometimes, she could hear Eun-hye's heels clicking angrily across the floors above her. Sometimes, silence. One evening, she heard voices, low, angry. You're never here, Daehyun.
You won't even talk about names.
What do you want me to do? Fake excitement for a baby I didn't carry. A baby you barely acknowledge. You think pretending to care makes you a mother?
Daehyun's voice was sharp, emotionless. This was your plan. You wanted an heir. You chose the contract.
Don't rewrite the rules now.
I don't want her in this house.
She's the only one carrying your legacy. I didn't mean the baby, Eun-hye spat. I meant the girl.
Chisholm backed away from the wall, heart pounding. She wasn't supposed to hear that. But now she couldn't unhear it.
The next morning, Chisholm didn't come out of her room. Not when breakfast was delivered. Not when the nutritionist rang the intercom to confirm her prenatal supplements. Not even when the garden staff ran noisy leaf blowers across the courtyard. She lay curled on the couch, one hand resting gently on her lower abdomen. 10 weeks now. Not yet showing, but definitely real. She could feel the exhaustion tightening her bones, and more than that, the heaviness of knowing she wasn't wanted in the house that paid her bills.
A knock at the door startled her. Not the staff. This knock was firmer. She opened it hesitantly.
Daehyun stood there in a dark wool coat, scarf still wrapped around his neck. You didn't eat, he said. I wasn't hungry. He stared for a moment, then stepped inside without asking. The room was pristine except for a few notebooks scattered across the coffee table. One was a sketchpad, rough pencil drawings of figures, profiles, empty rooms.
He glanced at them without touching. Have you been crying? He asked. No, she hadn't. But she might if he stayed long enough. He studied her for another moment.
Do you want to leave? I signed a contract.
That's not what I asked.
Chisholm shifted. Why do you care?
You barely speak to me.
Your wife doesn't want me here. I'm just a function.
Daehyun looked down.
When he finally spoke, his voice was low. I never wanted a family.
She raised her brows, surprised by his honesty. But I wanted peace in my house. My name needed to be extended. Eun-hye insisted.
I agreed. It was logical.
And now? She resents it. And resents you.
Chisholm crossed her arms. So I should apologize for being useful. A trace of a smile touched his mouth.
No.
That's the only reason you're still here. She bristled at his words, but something in his tone made her pause.
It wasn't cruelty. It was clarity. He wasn't pretending. He was just built of straight lines and blunt edges. I miss being invisible, she muttered.
That's all I ever wanted in this place. Daehyun tilted his head. You were never invisible.
They began seeing each other more after that.
Not in planned ways. Not in intimate ways.
But she'd pass him in the hallway. He'd stop by unannounced with check-in questions.
He'd nod to her during tea deliveries. And every time their eyes met, something softened, even if only slightly.
Then came the blood pressure scare.
Chisholm had been feeling faint all morning, and while climbing the stairs to retrieve a medical file from the guest wing, her vision blurred. She slumped to the floor, catching herself on the railing before everything went black. When she came to, Daehyun was crouched beside her. His hand gripped her wrist tightly, checking her pulse. A doctor stood behind him, speaking rapidly in Korean.
Don't move, Daehyun ordered. I'm fine, she croaked. No, you're not.
You almost fell down a staircase.
He helped her to her feet.
She leaned heavily against him. I told the staff to monitor your vitals, he muttered under his breath. Why didn't anyone notice this earlier? I didn't report it.
Why? Because I didn't think anyone would care.
The silence between them turned heavy. He helped her to the sofa, then stayed nearby while the doctor ran tests and confirmed that both mother and baby were stable.
Just fatigue. Low blood sugar. Anxiety.
I need you to be okay, Daehyun said afterward.
I thought I was just carrying a name, she said quietly.
That's what you told me.
His eyes met hers.
I was wrong.
Eun-hye returned that night. She made no effort to visit the suite.
No knock, no questions, no appearance. But the next morning, the door to Chisholm's apartment was slightly ajar.
On the kitchen counter sat an envelope. Inside was a single check and a typed note.
60 million Korean wons.
Leave after the child is born. No contact. No publicity. No trace.
Chisholm held the paper for a long time, hands trembling, not with shock, but with rage.
The amount was enough to change her life. Pay her school debt.
Buy her family a house back home. But the message it carried was louder than the number.
You are a mistake. A burden. An outsider.
She slid the check back in the envelope and placed it carefully on the coffee table.
Then she walked through the corridor and straight into the main house.
Daehyun was seated in the sunken lounge, a file in his hand, a teacup beside him. He didn't look up until she was standing directly in front of him.
What is this? She asked, voice calm but strained. He glanced at the envelope. I didn't write that. But you knew about it. He didn't answer. Chisholm swallowed hard.
I'm not a threat to your wife.
I'm not trying to take anything.
I'm just trying to survive.
I know.
Then tell her to stop treating me like trash. Daehyun stood slowly. I already have. She doesn't listen. She said I'll disappear after birth, Chisholm said, stepping closer.
But you know what? That baby is growing inside me. I feel her. I carry her. I protect her.
I may not be her biological mother, but I'm more than an incubator. Daehyun didn't move.
His eyes darkened.
I never said you weren't.
You didn't have to, she whispered.
Then she left the room.
That night, a small box was left at her door.
Inside was a meal.
A proper one.
Fried rice with beef strips, vegetables, and plantains.
And a folded note. You are not invisible. You are not forgotten.
Daehyun.
Daehyun began to notice her. Not just as the woman carrying his child. Not just as a name on a contract.
But as a presence in his home, in his routine, in the hours he once moved through like a ghost. It was in the way she held her tea in the mornings with both hands, like it grounded her. The way she sat quietly on the window bench, sketching as if the silence were her friend. The way she hummed, low, wordless melodies that reminded him of something he couldn't name. And the way she laughed, not often, but when she did, it cracked something inside him open. One afternoon, he came back from a shareholder meeting to find her in the greenhouse, surrounded by aloe, hyacinths, and orchids.
She was barefoot, kneeling in the soil.
Her dress clung to her in the humidity. Her hands were dirty, her hair tied back with a loose band. Daehyun had never seen anything more beautiful. You like flowers? He asked, stepping in. She startled slightly, brushing dirt from her palms.
I used to garden with my grandmother. Back home.
We'd plant cassava and yam, but I always snuck in some hibiscus and sunflowers. Hibiscus, he repeated.
It's my favorite. Red petals.
It tastes sweet as tea and strong as memory.
He nodded, watching her.
She returned to trimming the aloe tips, trying not to feel self-conscious.
"I'm sorry about the other day," he said quietly. Chisholm didn't look up.
"She shouldn't have sent you money to disappear." "She did worse than that," Chisholm replied, her voice calm but clipped. "She made me feel like I was contaminating this house." "You're not. She thinks I'm beneath you."
He said nothing. But she continued.
"And maybe I am.
Maybe that's what all this is about.
You think you've done something kind.
Something noble. But I'm the one carrying the weight. Literally. Emotionally. And you still get to pretend like you're the good one."
"I never said I was good,"
he said. She looked at him then. Really looked.
And the mask he wore, the one carved by wealth and silence, slipped just a little. "I was married young," Daehyun said suddenly. "Not for love.
My father arranged it with Eunhai's father.
We were two assets, merged to strengthen both families."
She knew. I knew. But I tried to make it work. Until she lost the first baby. Chisholm's breath caught. She never recovered. Emotionally. She blamed me. I didn't fight her. I buried myself in work. She started traveling more.
And now, here we are.
"I'm sorry," Chisholm whispered. He nodded slowly.
"I am too." From that day, they were never quite the same. Their conversations grew deeper.
Their silences more comfortable.
Some mornings, he'd join her on the window bench with his coffee. Some nights, she'd find extra blankets left on her couch, folded perfectly.
There were boundaries. But they blurred like ink in water.
Then came the night she felt the baby kick for the first time. She gasped, hand pressing instinctively to her side. Daehyun, seated across the room, looked up from his book. "What is it?" She moved.
He stood quickly.
"Are you okay?"
Chisholm laughed softly. "Yes. I mean, yes. She's just saying hello." "Can I?" he asked, stepping closer. She hesitated, then took his hand and placed it gently on the spot. For a second, nothing. Then a soft thump beneath the skin.
Daehyun's eyes widened. "That's her."
Chisholm nodded, her voice shaky.
"She's real."
He didn't speak.
He just kept his hand there, reverently. "She likes music,"
Chisholm whispered. "I play soft rhythms sometimes."
"She kicks more when I hum." "What do you hum?" "Old songs. Songs from home." Daehyun looked at her then. Not the woman carrying his child, but the woman changing his entire world. "She'll be strong," he said.
"She already is." But not everything softened.
Eunhai noticed the shift.
And her jealousy turned venomous. It started subtly.
A misplaced vitamin bottle.
Missed appointments.
Rooms scheduled for cleaning while Chisholm rested. One day, the baby's sonogram photo went missing from the fridge. And then, during dinner one night, she said it out loud. "Is the child even yours, Daehyun?"
The room went silent.
Chisholm froze with a fork halfway to her mouth. Daehyun stood slowly. "Don't start," he said, voice dangerously low. "Why not?"
Eunhai smirked. "You're acting like she's your queen. You defend her more than your own wife."
"This child is mine," he said firmly.
"And what if she decides to keep it?"
"What if she starts calling herself its mother?"
Chisholm stood suddenly, her voice trembling.
"I would never take what isn't mine.
I'm doing this because I promised to.
But I won't stay here and be insulted every day." She turned to leave, but Daehyun reached out, gently catching her wrist.
"Stay," he said softly.
She looked at him, confused. "I'm sorry," he said, not just to her, but to something bigger. To the months of silence. The years of emotional absence. The ache of never choosing anything for himself.
Chisholm sat back down.
Eunhai stared at them, her face a mask of hatred and disbelief.
Then she stood and walked out. That was the last dinner they ever had as a trio.
As the months passed, Chisholm grew larger, slower, more tender. Daehyun became her quiet guardian. He made sure her cravings were met, plantains, pepper soup, mango juice.
He drove her to prenatal visits himself. He read every medical report twice.
At night, when insomnia crept in, he'd text her links to parenting articles and birth playlists. One night, she found him asleep outside her suite, head leaning against the doorframe, still in his work clothes.
"Why are you here?" she asked, kneeling beside him. He opened his eyes slowly.
"I had a dream you went into labor and I wasn't there."
She smiled. "It's not time yet,"
But I didn't want to miss anything. She reached out, brushing a strand of hair from his forehead.
Thank you, she said.
For seeing me. I wish I'd seen you sooner. 3 weeks before the due date, Chisholm collapsed in the hallway. She had just finished rinsing her herbal tea cup when a sharp pain jolted her from inside, wrapping around her back and pushing her knees toward the floor. She grabbed the wall for balance, her breath catching. Daehyun was on a call when the housekeeper screamed. By the time he reached her, she was curled on the floor, her hands cradling her belly, eyes wide with fear. Chisholm.
She looked up.
It's too early. Without waiting for instructions, Daehyun scooped her up and raced to the car. The driver barely got the engine started before Daehyun was yelling for speed. In the hospital, things moved in a blur. Machines beeped. Nurses spoke in clipped tones. A doctor explained she was experiencing preterm labor brought on by stress. Stress.
Daehyun's heart sank. He knew what that meant. Knew that the stress wasn't just the pregnancy. It was the coldness in the house. The veiled threats.
The hostile glances from Eun-hye.
And he had let it happen.
Hours passed. Then silence.
Chisholm was stabilized.
But the doctor warned them. You need to keep her stress-free, Mr. Daehyun. Any more episodes, and we risk both the baby and the surrogate's health. Daehyun didn't leave the hospital that night. He stayed beside Chisholm's bed, watching her chest rise and fall in sleep, guilt tightening around his throat. When she opened her eyes around dawn, she found his hand in hers. Are you okay? He whispered.
She nodded slowly.
She's still here. Because of you.
I was scared.
So was I. There was a long pause. Then she asked, Did you mean it? When you said she was yours? He looked at her, truly looked at her.
Yes, she is. So are you. Chisholm's throat closed. But before she could reply, the door opened.
Eun-hye stood there, dressed in black. You've humiliated me enough, she said calmly. We're filing for divorce.
Neither Chisholm nor Daehyun spoke.
Eun-hye walked into the room and dropped a folder on the table.
I'll sign over the company shares.
I've had enough of pretending. You want her.
She looked at Chisholm. Fine. She can have you.
I never belonged to you, Daehyun said.
No, Eun-hye sneered.
You just let me wear the ring. After the divorce was announced publicly, Chisholm tried to move out. She quietly packed her things, folding clothes into neat piles, gathering the few trinkets she'd brought from Nigeria. Daehyun came home to find her zipping a bag. Where are you going?
She didn't meet his eyes. You've been through enough scandal.
You don't need more rumors about you and the surrogate. You think I care? You should.
You're a CEO.
A public figure.
And
I'm a woman with no family name, no status. I was paid to carry a child, Daehyun.
That's all. No, he said.
That's not all.
He stepped closer. You're the woman who sings in the morning. Who sketches plants in the greenhouse. Who talks to my daughter like she's already here.
You are not a transaction, Chisholm. You're the first person who's ever made this house feel like a home.
Her eyes filled. She's not even mine, she whispered.
When I give birth, I'll disappear.
Don't, he said.
What? Don't disappear. The delivery came early.
2 weeks before the due date. It was sudden. Painful.
Emotional. Hours of labor. Daehyun was by her side the entire time, holding her hand, whispering through each contraction. And when the cry broke through the room, sharp, small, yet mighty, Chisholm wept.
So did Daehyun.
The baby girl was tiny, but strong. Full head of black curls, tiny fists balled tight. She blinked at the light, squinting at the world as though already judging it. The nurse placed the baby in Daehyun's arms. His hands trembled. Hello, little warrior, he whispered. You've made it.
Then the nurse turned to Chisholm.
Do you want to hold her?
Chisholm froze. She wasn't supposed to. The contract was clear. But Daehyun stepped in.
Please, he said. Let her. Chisholm took the child in her arms and everything stopped. The sterile white room, the hospital noises, the emotional haze, it all quieted. There was just her and this tiny soul. Hi, she whispered, tears streaking her cheeks. Hi, baby. The baby yawned. Then, in a moment she'd remember for the rest of her life, the baby curled her tiny fingers around Chisholm's thumb. Daehyun watched them both, mother and child, even if only for a moment. When they returned home, Daehyun surprised her. He had set up a nursery, not just for the baby, but a guest room right next to it, stocked with everything Chisholm would need. "I want you here," he said simply. "But the contract." "Contracts can be rewritten."
Chisholm looked at him.
Her heart was heavy with gratitude, but heavier still with fear.
"This isn't love, Daehyun," she said quietly. "It's circumstance. Sympathy." "No," he said.
"It's the clearest thing I've felt in years."
Weeks passed.
Nights became a cycle of feeding, soft cries, bottle warming, and lullaby playlists, but not sung, just playing quietly through the baby monitor.
Chisholm stayed.
Daehyun never asked her to leave. They became a quiet family, one stitched together by unexpected threads. Sometimes, Chisholm would wake up to find Daehyun already feeding the baby, whispering to her in Korean, smiling in a way that broke her. Other times, she'd catch him watching her, not just as the surrogate, but as something else.
Something deeper. Then came the night they kissed. It wasn't dramatic. No thunderstorm. No sweeping orchestra. Just a quiet evening. A shared joke. A moment where their eyes met and didn't turn away.
Daehyun reached for her.
She leaned in.
Their lips met like a confession long held in silence. When they pulled apart, neither spoke.
But they didn't need to.
Winter crept into Seoul slowly that year. The baby, named Daehyun, a name Daehyun chose, meaning grace, grew stronger each day. Her laugh, tiny as it was, filled the villa like music.
Chisholm stayed.
At first, she told herself it was for the baby, then for Daehyun's support.
But deep down, she knew.
She was falling, for both of them. One morning, Chisholm found Daehyun standing by the window, holding Daehyun against his chest. The baby slept, her cheek pressed to his heart.
Chisholm paused in the doorway.
"You should take her back to Nigeria," Daehyun said quietly.
Chisholm frowned.
"What?"
"For a visit.
"To meet your parents.
Your people.
They should know she exists."
She moved closer.
"Are you serious?"
He nodded.
"I'll come with you, if you'll have me."
A part of her feared what that meant.
Nigeria wasn't just another place. It was home. It was questions, judgments, stares. A Korean man with a baby born of surrogacy?
Tongues would wag.
But then Daehyun added, "I don't care what they think. I care what you think."
She didn't answer immediately. But 3 weeks later, they were on a plane. Lagos was humid and loud and alive.
Chisholm's parents were stunned to see her step out of the car, holding a baby, with a Korean man behind her.
Her mother wept.
Her father stood still for a long moment before saying, "You came back." Inside the house, questions began.
Whispers. Her aunt wanted to know if the child was adopted. Her uncle asked bluntly if Daehyun was her husband.
Chisholm wanted to explain, to unpack the whole complicated story, but Daehyun took her hand in front of everyone and said, "She gave me a reason to live again."
That was all. And somehow, that was enough.
They stayed 2 weeks. Her mother wouldn't stop holding Daehyun. Her father, a quiet, stoic man, built a small wooden cradle from scratch. Late one night, as they sat outside watching stars, Chisholm asked Daehyun, "Why are you really here?"
He looked at her.
"Because you're my home now."
Back in Seoul, things weren't as quiet.
A media leak. A tabloid photo of Chisholm leaving a pediatrician's clinic with Daehyun. Headlines spun stories faster than Daehyun's team could contain them. Billionaire CEO's secret love child. Surrogate turned mistress.
And the worst one.
He paid her to stay, and then fell in love. Within 24 hours, shareholders panicked.
Board members scheduled emergency meetings. Rival CEOs smelled blood.
Daehyun cancelled all appearances. When he arrived home, Chisholm was already packing.
"No," he said, voice hard.
"You saw the news."
"I don't care. They'll force you out."
"You'll lose everything." "I already lost everything once. I won't do it again." She turned to him, her expression breaking. "Daehyun, this isn't a fairy tale.
I'm not your Cinderella.
I'm a Nigerian woman who carried your baby for money. They'll never let you love me freely." He stepped forward, pulled her hands from the suitcase.
"Let them talk. Let them spit their venom.
You are the best decision I've ever made."
She stared at him, tears threatening. "But are you sure?" she whispered.
"Because if you ask me to stay, Daehyun, I won't survive another rejection."
He didn't hesitate. He pulled a small box from his pocket, opened it. Inside, a gold ring. Not out of guilt. Not out of pressure. Because I love you.
Because I want to raise our daughter together, in truth, not secrecy.
Chisholm fell into his arms, sobbing. They didn't have a grand wedding. Just a small ceremony in the villa's garden. His assistant. Her best friend. A few close friends from both worlds. They exchanged vows beneath white magnolia trees.
Daehyun promised never to let the world shame her. Chisholm promised to keep choosing love, even when it felt impossible. And Hyun, strapped to Chisholm's chest in a lace gown, slept through the entire ceremony.
The scandal didn't fade overnight. Some shareholders pulled out. Some board members resigned. But Daehyun stood firm. He restructured the company. Put more women and minorities on the board.
Launched a foundation in Chisholm's name to support women who wanted to be mothers but couldn't afford fertility treatment.
People watched. And slowly, the noise quieted. Years passed.
Hyun turned 3. She ran through the house like a storm, speaking Yoruba with her grandma and Korean with her dad. Daehyun and Chisholm would sit on the floor of the nursery every night, reading books, giggling, watching their daughter sleep. One evening, Chisholm sat on the porch, sketching. Daehyun brought her tea.
She looks more like you every day, he said. Chisholm smiled. She's got your eyes. They sat in silence for a moment.
Then Chisholm turned to him. You never told me something, she said softly. Why did you choose me that day? Out of all the profiles, why me?
Daehyun looked down at her drawing. You wrote something, he said.
On your application. You said, I've never had a child, but I've carried dreams heavier than any baby.
And I know how to love what doesn't yet exist. He looked at her.
That's when I knew.
Chisholm's eyes filled. She leaned against him. He wrapped his arms around her.
And in the golden light of dusk, 2 hearts that came from different worlds beat in the same rhythm, no longer separated by race, class, or secrets.
Just family.